for. Because as long you look at Howard University, which is the Mecca, I go to EMU. That school has more resources than Howard. That's ridiculous, but it is the truth.
A lot of ground.
I'll let you respond. Go ahead.
There's no question that there is still discrimination in society. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. The question is, and there's no question that we should celebrate diversity. The question is, what solutions should we use in order to end discrimination? Do we end discrimination by discriminating against other subpopulations? In my opinion, you don't. And I don't believe that. I'm not against MCRI because it replaces one student with another, replacing one seat with another seat. I'm against MCRI because I think that it reduces the credibility of those that would otherwise be very qualified to be in that position. And so when you get out and you're in school or you're getting a job, then people won't be thinking, did they get it on the basis of their race, or did they get it, how did they get to that position? I think it's unfortunate that racial preference has thus lowered credibility in some circumstances.
Next question.
Next question. I'd want to say.
Next question,
I want to respond to that,
please, Mr. Glacier. Please, you're going to get a chance to say whatever it is that you have to say. Next question from the panel.
Harry Campbell, WJNZ 1140. This question goes to Mr. Washington. How will the Civil Rights Initiative give our state any more civil rights guarantees than the one currently promised under the Civil Rights Act of 1964 or the Elliott-Larsen Act?
It gives absolutely nothing. It does nothing about discrimination. They titled this a Civil Rights Act to perpetrate a fraud on people.
Right.
This proposal has one purpose, and one purpose only, and that is to get rid of affirmative action. Now, ask yourself, why did they not say that in their petition? And the reason is because they wanted to lie to people. And in particular, they wanted to tell different lies. They wanted to go to the suburbs and say, this is a civil rights bill, we're all for equality, you can vote to keep black people out, but feel good about it because we're saying we're for civil rights. And they wanted to go into the city of Detroit and Grand Rapids and say to black people, sign this because it's a civil rights bill. If you look at this, this is a lie and a fraud from top to bottom. All you've got to do is look at it to know that.
And why is it needed if we're already protected?
It is not needed. It's a step backwards. And I've got to say one thing, and I'm sorry to digress for a minute. If this debate did nothing else, I think Mr. Glazer's comments are very revealing when he says that it would have kids go to schools that are qualified for their ability. Well, you know what? My kids go to the Detroit public schools, and there are kids in those schools who are every bit as bright and talented and capable as
I never said otherwise. Excuse me, I never said otherwise.
I didn't interrupt you. They're every bit as qualified.
About lying, fraud.
Excuse me. They're every bit as qualified. And yet, if this proposal goes through, they're not going to be able to go. Not because they're not qualified, not because they're not capable, but because this will mandate the University of Michigan and other universities to abandon the only program that has mitigated the discrimination in this society. These folks talk about, well, we've got to do something about K-12 education. Do either of them, have they done anything? Have the right wing of the Republican Party, which has supported this, said anything about K-12 education? No. What would it do? What would it do to education in the city of Detroit if all of those kids had no chance to go to school? Where would we get the teachers who are supposed to improve?
Thank you, Mr. Washington.
This is ridiculous.
Thank you, Mr. Glazier. 1 minute to respond.
Well, I think in terms of lies and fraud, BAM really has the monopoly on that for a variety of reasons. But backing up to self-sufficiency, you know, Thomas Sowell, Shelby Steele, John McWhorter, all black writers have talked about the problems of discrimination through affirmative action and the need to develop self-sufficiency, responsibility, and real ability not to discriminate against others to get those students into elite colleges. Those people become Uncle Toms or are branded as such by BAM and other people on the radical left fringe, and their arguments and scholarship is completely put out of the picture. The Michigan Civil Rights Initiative is not trying to resegregate. It is not lying. It is not committing fraud. It is trying to protect people from discrimination and truly develop the human potential of all of Michigan's citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Glazer. I've been asked to emphasize that this is a discussion, a civil discussion, and that we should stay in that posture by the people, the gentleman that organized this. We're going to move to the next question from the panel, Mr. Flores.
Not to reiterate the, I guess, the confusion, if we don't want to call it absence of truth, in collecting signatures for this initiative. But I've read several articles, including in the Grand Rapids Press and the Flint Journal. I know people personally that were somewhat duped or confused into signing the initial petitions to put this on the ballot. It was promoted as a civil rights bill. How do you explain then that so many people have come forth to testify and to give reports to journalists in the major cities, Flint, Grand Rapids, and Detroit, that they in fact were confused when they signed these petitions, that it was presented to them as a civil rights initiative that would help them?
I wasn't involved in writing it. I don't work for MCRI, so I wasn't involved in writing the petition. I will say that there is an argument, I'm sure most people in this room will disagree with it, but there is an argument that there is something to do with civil rights here, that this does lead towards more equality. I think that you know, racial preference is an inequality in and of itself, and so this does lead towards more equality. Whether or not it gets rid of discrimination, I understand that argument, but I think there's other ways to get rid of discrimination than using racial preference, using further inequality. So the name, I think, most people argue is deceiving. I think there is some truth to it, at least, as to how they gathered their petition signatures. I wasn't involved.
Next question from media panelists, and please direct your question to one of the panelists.
Mr. Washington, I got a question. You say affirmative action really isn't needed anymore. Can you explain to me why corporate America is still willing to pay large amounts of civil suits as of $1 billion just in the last 10 years of discrimination?
That's Mr. Washington.
I'm sorry, Mr. Washington.
Glazer?
Mr. Glazer. Mr. Glazer.
I'm not in charge of corporate America. I don't think the Michigan Civil Rights Initiative.
But University of Michigan puts many people in them positions, and if we don't have the people, those are minority.
They shouldn't be discriminated. There shouldn't be discrimination to fill positions in corporations.
It doesn't work that way.
Which is the one focus of the Michigan Civil Rights Initiative.
Mr. Jasper.
This is open for the panel, just in general. What are the views in regards to legacy programs, which is a subsect of affirmative action? Also, in light of the fact that many of our current leaders and our president is a direct beneficiary. Thank you. That's such an intelligent audience here. Is a direct beneficiary of the legacy program, which is a subsect of affirmative action.
If I can address that, I think you should get rid of them, and I think that a lot of people in this room should be focusing their energy on that. I think that's another form of inequality, just like racial preference is an inequality, and I think we should be going for a truly equal society, and the only solution to inequality is equality, and I think we should get rid of legacy programs.